Rufus Church in Cornwall has opened a new chapter in its long life after a local community group was handed the historic building by the Church of England. St Day Holy Trinity Old Church will be turned into a community space for theatre, music, film, arts and all sorts of educational and social issues. The church was closed in 1956 after serious structural problems and it became derelict. But in 1988, an appeal was launched to save it for the community. Now the community hopes to complete the work needed to use the space. BBC Radio Cornwall's Karen Stewart went along to the handing over celebration.
It's been a 30-year journey for the community of St Day, who have campaigned and fundraised to own and run their historic church to be used by the local residents. It's been a complex battle by local people to purchase the roofless relic, but persistence has paid off. Bernadette Fallon is the chair of the St Day Old Church Community and Trust Company. She explained why it had been so long.
Coming on this very special...
Much vandalised and abused, and nothing was done to maintain it. 1985, vandals caused a tiny little part of the roof to fall, but then the decision was taken that the roof had to go, so that was dynamited. And in fact, the walls stayed straight and true. They're perfectly good, and not as much damage was done as you might think, except that it no longer had a roof, and then the remains of the roof were left inside. So the first job we had to do when we eventually were able to do something was get all that cleared out. We had to get a faculty to do anything at all, to touch it in any way at all, and that took 6 years. And then it took a few more years to get the church declared redundant, which meant that we really could work on it. And raising funds and getting permissions, and just these things take a long time. And the main thing we did was not go away. We just stuck it out for 30 years and were persistent enough to get there in the end.
The project to obtain the church and run it as a community space has been years in the planning, and there's still more hard work to do. But having reached this important milestone, the residents are determined to press on. Mark Johnson is the secretary of the Community Interest Company. He says they're a pretty determined bunch.
To be honest, a lot of people had stopped seeing it. It became such a problem, it was too difficult to see or to contemplate. At one stage, the diocese wanted to develop it for flats, and that was really the crunch for us. We couldn't contemplate that happening, so we took it on. And they would only deal with an established charitable trust, which we weren't at the time. St Day Historical and Conservation Society is a community society, but it's not a charitable trust. So we now formed one, and we are now registered at Company's House.
The Archdeacon of Cornwall is Bill Stewart White. He says he's proud to hand the church over to the village.
Lawyers have been involved for many years, lots of different parties, but it's all come together today, we're delighted to say. I mean, it hasn't been a battle between us at all. It's just this is a building that's falling down, and buildings that are falling down cost lots of money. And so there's been a previous go at a trust taking on responsibility, but for whatever reason that didn't work. So it's needed the real long-term commitment of the community interest group here to assure a future, and we could only hand it over when we knew there was an assured future for the building.
They have very high hopes for the historic building, and even without a roof, the beautiful open space can make a unique venue. The St Day Daylight Choir, who performed at the handing over celebration, hope they have many more opportunities to sing in the old church.
We've performed a couple of times in here before, but it's always been occasional times. But now we've got it sorted out. We expect we're going to be performing in here a lot more, I think. And it's a wonderful place to perform. It's such an atmospheric building, and the acoustics are lovely.
I can see it being a sort of place where you'd have a small folk festival in the summer, maybe regular fundraising concerts, that kind of thing. It's a really lovely sound in there.
It's been a real concern as to what the future was going to be. The community was really concerned that it might be sold off for flats at one point, which was horrendous. So it's really nice to see the future of the building secure now.
Members of the Daylight Choir, see what they did with the name there? They're from St Day, ending that report from BBC Radio Cornwall's Karen Stewart.